Welcome everyone to the third year Elastos anniversary Ask Me Anything. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Zach and the Elastos Info team for the invite. It's a pleasure to be presenting this as Orchard. Today we have some great guests. If we'd like to go and individually introduce ourselves, starting with Rong, Chen.
Oh, hi everyone. Thank you to meet you all online.
And Rong, would you like to just quickly give your background to anyone that doesn't know about Elastos that could be tuning in?
My name is Rong Chen. I'm the founder of this Elastos project. That's.
I think it speaks for itself. So then secondly, we have Jingyu. Jingyu, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jingyu from China. I'm chief engineer from Elastos.
Brilliant. And then we have Clarence.
Hi, everyone. My name is Clarence. I'm the VP of Development. I also wear a few different hats. I'm also the lead for CR Regions, which is the new business arm of Cyber Republic. And I'm also a member of the Ethereum Task Force, which works on community-led projects in the Ethereum Sidechain space for Elastos.
Thank you. We have KP, also Kiran.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kiran, or people know me by KP. I'm a part developer, part technical lead at Tuum Tech, where we work with Elastos Foundation. We're part of Elastos Foundation. We are involved in putting out a lot of recent applications on Elastos that you're familiar with, such as Assist, Vouch, and more to come in the future.
That's brilliant. Thanks. And then we have Peter Strauss.
Hey everyone, Peter Strauss here, and I'm leading the development of the Hyper Messenger application, and I'm also involved in the development of the Elastos desktop solution. Our team is located in Austria, and we have been working with Elastos for the last 2 years now.
That's brilliant. And then moderating it is Orchard, which is myself, Chris, and Joachim. Chris and Joachim, would you like to just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Jochem Herber. I'm calling in from Amsterdam. It's midnight here. I'm very much looking forward to this. So I'm very much ready to get started.
Hi, my name's Chris, calling in from London. Really good to speak with you all tonight. Really good to see you. And like many here, I'm wearing my Elastos shirt that I was given on the first. So really pleased to be able to wear that with you tonight.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. So we have a host of great questions from the community to go through. Thank you so much, everyone, for asking them. And I think without further ado, we should just get stuck right in. So Joachim, would you like to direct the first question?
Absolutely. And I think that the first question is going to be for Kiran. And this is actually a question that has been on anyone's mind for the past 2 years or so, which is, Kiran, where did you get those awesome dance moves from?
Hey, I was born with it. That's where I got it from.
I think this will stay part of the Kiran brand forever. So keep those. So then on a more serious note, Tuum has been delivering quite a lot, right? You guys have been extremely busy. You've been involved in Hiveplus, in Vouch, Assist, and you recently, well, just on Monday, released the Feeds app, right? So the development has been super consistent. My question to you is, what excites you the most looking forward, and why?
Yeah, we actually branched off of Elastos Foundation, similar to other teams in the Elastos Foundation, about 6 to 7 months ago, and we decided to call ourselves this new entity called Tuum Tech. Tuum literally translates to you in Latin, so it's perfect for what we're trying to do, where we want to give control, when it comes to owning your data back to the users themselves. So it's only fitting that the kind of applications that we've been working for the last few months have been focused on those kind of things. So initially we started with Academy application, and that was more of a test bed, so to speak, because it still is. What we did with that is we decided to gamify, we like to call it Duolingo for blockchain. And it initially started with with just, answering some quiz questions about Elastos, different components of Elastos, and be able to actually earn points, compete against other people, rank up against other people, and add other people to your friends list, talk to them, and even join guilds. And recently we even added a lobby chat which utilizes Carrier for group chat messaging. So all of the things that we did in Academy app has been to test a lot of the Elastos components, such as Carrier, DID, and so on, and Elastos browser itself. So in doing so, we actually have been working closely with the Trinity Elastos team in China. So we've been sort of giving, helping them figure out all the different bugs that were present early on, and a lot of those we were able to quickly put out a fix for them. And so, we started with that, and then recently we also had Assist application which lets anyone publish their DIDs for free up to 5 times per day, but it's still free up to 5 times. And then more recently, actually, our Vouch application allows anyone to validate your DID, and our initial version actually allows you to validate your email address, attach it to your DID, publish it to the blockchain if you want to. But if looking into the future, and more recently, about feeds, we actually have not been personally involved with feeds just yet, but we have been involved with the design aspect, and we've been kind of helping the feeds team with the overall flow, how it's supposed to look, and basically helping them figure out all the bugs, like what we've been doing. But looking into the future, we actually have a lot of plans in mind, what we want to do with Tuum Tech, with the first thing being that we're actually we will update Vouch in a very meaningful way, which will let, currently you can validate email addresses and you have to sort of run your own node. And that may not really be that, if someone wanted to be a validator themselves, let's say let's say Rong wanted to validate me that I am in fact Kiran, right? Well, he doesn't want to run a node, right? So what we want to do is on Vouch, we want him to register himself as a validator. And then when I can request him to validate me. So in the future, he will be able to validate my name, and then I will be able to get that credential and publish it on the blockchain. So, with that update, anyone should be able to register themselves as validators, verify any credential to anyone if they wanted to. Obviously, it's not as robust as running your own node, but it's still a fun way to validate each other, your friends, so on and so forth. So among other things, far into the future, we're actually trying to utilize Hiveplus. We'll talk about Hiveplus later, but we're trying to utilize Hiveplus with all of our applications, and sort of also build business models around all of our applications that have been deployed. So really looking forward to that.
Wow, this is a lot of information in a very short period of time. Just so that I heard it correctly, you said that anyone can publish a DID for free up to 5 times a day. So that means that pretty much you don't need to necessarily own crypto in order to publish your DID. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. That actually reminded me of another project that I completely forgot, because it's sort of in hidden mode right now, because we're working in the background. We want to make it as easy as possible for anyone, not just crypto enthusiasts, but regular users, to be able to register, basically create a DID profile. But just creating a DID profile doesn't really mean anything. So you want to be able to do some meaningful things with the DID, right? So we're trying to build sort of like a one-pager website that lets anyone create their DID profile on the web. And so we can easily onboard users, and then it will also let them easily publish their DID for free again. So that, I think, and then right after that, if people are interested in learning more about DID, what they can do with it, then they can certainly move on to Elastos, downloading Elastos and playing around with other applications there. So yeah, that's what we're working on. And assist, we did initially start with DIDs, publishing DIDs for free, but we also want to provide a lot more services in the future, pretty much in any way we can assist users in onboarding users, right? So one of the new features that we pushed out actually just yesterday was a simple search feature that lets you search your DID from the blockchain, and it produces the result. It lets you view all the credentials that have been published on the blockchain for any DID, not just your DID, but it's sort of like a DID document browser. It's not a DID sidechain browser because you don't really look at all the block details and so on and so forth, but rather you're looking at the actual document that has been published on the blockchain.
I think that's absolutely awesome, KP. And this story, what you just told us, it is kind of new to me at least, but it makes the whole user experience so much better. And it makes it so much easier to onboard new users. So this is very, very good news to me. Maybe we can move to the next question, which is Sash. Could you do the next question?
Yeah, thank you, KP. It was fascinating. So recently you've been working with the Trinity team to bring Elastos's latest product, Feeds, a decentralized Twitter. Can you tell us more about Feeds and how the team intends to grow it further? What features such as live media or videos will be added? And will it remain a free service, or is there a business model to it as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I mentioned earlier, Tuum Tech is not really... was not the initial developer of Feeds application. That credit goes to the Trinity team in China, but we did help with the design aspects, and we do continuously communicate with them to improve the Feeds app. So, just releasing that Feeds app this week was a great accomplishment by itself, because this is like Twitter, but without Twitter, the company. So, anyone can run their own Feeds node on the cloud, on your Raspberry Pi, on your Mac, on whatever, server that you wanted to. And you'll be able to then, create different feeds. That's what we like to call them, feeds. That's why it's named Feeds. And then you can create like different pages where you can post, like I myself have 2 different pages. So you guys can follow me there, but it's sort of like Twitter, but in a decentralized, semi-decentralized sense, because you run your own node. So all the data that you put out, it is actually stored on your node, and other people can view all the data that you've published, that other people have liked. All of those data is stored on your node. So in a way, if you wanted to pull the plug, like tomorrow, let's say you just want to disappear, you don't want anyone else to view anything from your node, right? You could just shut down your server, and then you won't need to rely on anyone else. Rather, it's basically giving control back to yourself, right? When it comes to dealing with your personal data, whatever data, really. Feeds is just, again, when it comes to this social media platform, there's so much that can be done there. And I believe that I actually don't know the future plans for Feeds, but it will continue to improve, and it will eventually utilize Hiveplus in the future. So just a lot of things that have been worked on over the last few years have come together in this application, this social media application called Feeds.
Really fascinating, KP. And I mean, now is the time for these kind of applications, and I think there's a great use case, and we're seeing it with all these kind of data breaches. There's the recent Twitter one, and there's also whether it's shadow banning or people not being blocked. It's a big question that's being asked at the moment. So I think utilizing Elastos technology is certainly a way forward, and it's been really exciting to see this release and how it's going to progress further. So Chris, would you like to ask the next question?
You're muted, Chris.
Thank you very much. Yeah, basic technology is defeated by it straight away. Well, I'm really excited to be here tonight, and I mean, it's tonight for us in Europe, but we're joining America and China, and that's just such I think we'll probably just go around the houses. So KP, the sidechain on demand feature is really interesting. How is the development of that feature progressing? And is there a demand for such a service? Could you decide to have only one node running that sidechain, making it virtually a private blockchain with the security of Bitcoin?
So the sidechain on demand feature actually was initially thought of by Rong, and he can speak more to that later on. But basically, the idea is that you want to be able to spin up a sidechain on demand whenever you need to, do some work with it, and then when you're done, you can pretty much like get rid of it, right? Sort of like how, if you know how Amazon services work when it comes to something like a Lambda service, where you can utilize their service where you don't know how the code is being run, but you just deploy the code and then Amazon just runs that code somewhere on some server out there, does the job, gives you the result, and then you're done. And then that server is that won't be used after that. So sort of like that, but it's sort of dealing with the blockchains, our main chain sidechain structure, even more than sidechain on demand. Actually, what may be more meaningful in the near term is maybe a pluggable sidechain. So what that means is right now, if you wanted to add like a new sidechain, then there's a lot of process involved. There's a lot of overhead, and because there's a lot of things that need to be taken care of. So for instance, if you wanted to add a second Ethereum sidechain or second DID sidechain, you wouldn't need a second DID sidechain, but let's say you do need it, you do want it. So right now it's kind of a difficult process because you need enough nodes out there who are running these sidechain nodes, this second sidechain node processes, so that they can reach consensus whenever someone tries to utilize that sidechain, right? So, you know, if we can make that process very, very easy, where sort of like plug and play like thing, where, you know, you make it so easy that, you know, in a matter of minutes, anyone could easily test deploying a new sidechain on their own private environment, and then make sure everything works, and then propose to Cyber Republic, because addition of new sidechains have to go through Cyber Republic consensus now. And so after the consensus is reached from Cyber Republic council members and the community, then it could be easily added. So if we can simplify that process, I see a lot of value in that in the near term. Obviously, I'm not saying sidechain on demand is not a fascinating thing, but I think we're kind of you know, still far away from that kind of technology, but it's very, very fascinating to even go towards that, you know, towards that vision. So.
Yeah, it's a great aspiration. I've heard that my connection is not very good, so I'm going to try and sort that out, and I'll hand you back to Sash. But thank you very much, KP, for that great explanation.
Yeah, thanks a lot, KP. It's just so fascinating. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add to these comments at all?
Yeah, I wanted to add, he touched on a very good point. I want to elaborate a little bit on, you know, the consensus part, where we have to figure out how many nodes can run a sidechain. And it's obviously for, you know, the initial phase obviously is to involve CR. So we have, you know, a lot of CR nodes that we have to sign that. Even more lightweight nodes, sidechains could possibly run on less consensus nodes. However, the main consideration there is how much security you want, right? If you were running a gambling sidechain to run all the gambling dApps to use, well, then you probably want a lot of security because you're betting something, right? If you just want to make a simple game dApp, well, it really doesn't really matter in a day who wins or who loses if you're just playing for fun, right? So then you can obviously have a more lightweight sidechain. So these are really cool things that we can actually explore and help Elastos scale.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Clarence. Is there anything else anyone else would like to add? Okay, brilliant. Jochen, would you like to just ask the final question? To KP, that is.
You're muted.
Sorry, yes, very short one to you, KP. can we expect a desktop wallet, and by when can we expect one, if there's one coming?
By desktop wallet, I'm assuming you mean the Elastos version, desktop version, or just the wallet? Because if you think about the wallet, it is sort of was worked on by the community who did the ledger integration. So there is a desktop wallet out there that interacts, that connects to your ledger. But if we're talking about the desktop version of Elastos itself, then the work is actually ongoing, and we've reached some really good milestones recently. So Peter, who's also on this call today, he and his team are actually working on the desktop version of Elastos. So maybe you guys can ask him later. But we're planning to have like an initial sort of version, not very stable, but basically just to show proof of concept, sort of make sure that everything works. So we're gonna have that hopefully be available for anyone to give it a try in the next few weeks. So that's the status of the desktop version for Elastos. So keep out on the news, and I think we should have something to play with when it comes to desktop. The powerful thing about this desktop version of Elastos is developers only write code once, and then you'll be able to deploy your application to the App Store, right? And then other users can then download and interact and use that application from multiple platforms, such as wherever Elastos is available, like Android, iOS soon in the future, and desktop. So that's the status on that.
That's very interesting. Thank you so much. Shall we go maybe to Clarence and his questions next? And that would be then you, Sash.
Thank you, Joachim. Okay, so Clarence, we're really excited about DeFi coming to Elastos. It's been the big topic in the crypto space as a whole. So what is the plan after we integrate with Chainlink and Ren Alliance?
Right, so we need oracles. That's very simple. Let me walk you through like a simple example of where we're trying to at least the basic functionality you expect in DeFi. You definitely need an oracle because that gives you USD ELA price feed. So for example, think about how our money market plan looks like. So our goal initially is to create a money market where anyone can deposit ELA and withdraw ELA DAI. And ELA DAI is a stable coin. What this allows you to do is to spend ELA DAI without affecting the ELA's liquidity. However, there is an issue because ELA is a volatile asset. So a lot of people don't like that because I guess you're basically longing, to use a stock term, you're putting ELA in, you're depositing it and hoping that it keeps its value or it goes up. Because if it goes down, then the collateral that you put in to back up your ELA DAI may go down below the actual value of the ELA DAI, which would be a big problem, right? So if that ever happens, there's liquidation. But in order to actually know when liquidation occurs, or you actually have to know the value of ELA compared to your ELA DAI, which is in USD. So you need that oracle there, ELA DAI, the oracle there to know the price of ELA. So all of DeFi really runs on that, because without the prices, I mean, a lot of things just don't work, right? So that's the oracle that we already have running on testnet. Just a second week now that we have that. And the Red Alliance, is to go over that really quickly, is to move ELA to the Ethereum network to be used as collateral for other DeFi projects, right? So that we can get involved in that space. There's a big movement now called yield farming. I guess the goal is to go after yield farmers, which is, at the end of the day, people have a lot of assets now. DeFi has, $5 billion in locked Bitcoin up there. They got $100 million of Bitcoin being moved each day. So the DeFi market is getting really, really big, and it's getting bigger than anyone thought. I think total daily trading volume, as cryptocurrency as a whole, went from 70 billion to went from 36 billion to 70 billion from 2019 to 2020. So it doubled in a year. By projection, if we double in the next 2 years, we'll get to 200 billion in about 2025. So that's how big this market is, right? So people moved a lot of money around to get the most return on it. So right now, there's a lot of yield farmers in DeFi that move their assets to Compound, or if Compound didn't really give them much money, they move it to Aave. So wherever they find the best return on investment, they'll move it there. So on Elastos, we need to create really good DApps or DeFi platforms where there's a good return on investment. Some initial obvious targets is the DePos Supernode pool, right, where you can stake for that and you can earn some return on investment. The other idea is lending protocols. So anything where we can create a lending platform on Elastos where people can lend money. And of course, if you lend money, then you earn an interest, right? So if there's a way for people to move money here and the people are on Elastos are borrowing at a very high interest rate, then money will move to Elastos at the end of the day. So it's really just about interest rates. So where can people make the most money? That's where they'll move the money at.
That's really fascinating. And it is the kind of where the trend is at the moment. And we're seeing, everyone kind of move in. So it's really brilliant to see this Chainlink and Ren Alliance going on. So thank you for your work there, Clarence.
Yeah, we've also talking to MakerDAO. So we are planning, their recommendation even directly from them was to set up the money market based on Aave or legacy Compound on our side. So, we're talking to all of them. They're interested in getting this going. So yeah, we'll get there.
It's fascinating. Chris, would you like to ask the next one?
Really good, Clarence. Thank you very much. Hello, nice to see you again. Yeah. Just to dig into some of your thoughts, Clarence, you've been around this VP space and BD space for a long time. When you look at the trends in cryptocurrency, what else do you see as the other avenues that we should be exploring to capture market share?
Right, so obviously DIDs, that's very good on the enterprise side. I think one thing that people are missing is that Elastos is a very good enterprise grade public blockchain. With our connection to Bitcoin and the security that comes from that we can really claim to be an Ethereum based, at least for our Ethereum sidechain, if enterprises are looking for a well-rounded platform to build on that has a very secure foundation, we have that Bitcoin merge mining thing. I always try to push that theme that we have over 50% Bitcoin's hash rate. People don't know that we have, a lot of people don't even know that we have that much hash rate. It's like 50%. If you look at the cost to attack for blockchains, Ethereum right now costs $400,000 per hour to attack. If you could rent that hash rate, it costs you $400,000. You could actually cause a 51% attack on Ethereum. For Elastos, it's 450K. So it's higher than Ethereum, right? And Ethereum is bogged down by all these DApps running. So you're like, well, you have more security on Elastos, plus we have sidechains, so we can probably scale it out further too. I mean, of course, Ethereum 2.0 comes around, so maybe we'll leave that for the next question. But at the moment, if you look at the comparison, we do have a pretty good argument to the enterprise space. It's just that, I mean, we do have to rally behind maybe CR regions could go after that space, down the road, or some other team could take over. But on the BD front, we definitely do need a BD team. I mean, enterprise engagement is not an easy thing, right? We need someone a proper team with educated, well-connected people to actually reach out and go after these enterprises and say, hey, here's a solution. And that's a public blockchain solution. Of course, it's very, elaborate space to get into. I mean, we're talking, there's an ecosystem of Hyperledger, which is a private blockchains. A lot of them do private blockchains. If you look at Maersk and these guys and Walmart, they are using private blockchains. You're seeing that trend in supply chain, for example, moving into the private blockchains, it's just inevitable because at the end of the day, they weigh the public-private arguments and private usually wins out. I don't really need to know where my package is exactly and what temperature it's sitting at, right? But at the end of the day, I might need to know, and I'll trust the private blockchain because there's no other beneficiary to be malicious about it, right? So just an example.
Really, I mean, it's very insightful. And, we've gone from DeFi to supply chains, and there's so many other areas that we can tap into. Thank you very much for that. Joachim.
Yeah, I find it very interesting. And the whole idea of the ELA DAI, it's super interesting and very valuable to all of us for sure. I just want to go back to the ELA DAI principle just quickly, because a couple of things that are not entirely clear to me yet. So when you create a stablecoin on Elastos, what would it look like? And I guess that the two underlying questions there also that can you still stake the ELA that you use as collateral, for example? And can you also explain how liquidation would work, or how that works in general in the DAI space?
Sure. Oh yeah. So first, I want to be super clear that we are not creating or minting DAI on Elastos. It's actually, we explored that route earlier, but it is actually extremely difficult to mint it. Minting is easy, but maintaining the stablecoin and providing that collateral is extremely difficult. You need a lot of collateral to ensure that you don't have any issues. When Ethereum dropped from 1400 to 200, it caused a lot of liquidations on the Ethereum network, and it's actually quite amazing that MakerDAO has able to keep DAI so stable over the years. But at the end of the day, the ELA DAI is basically brought over through a token bridge from the Ethereum network. So we let Ethereum take care of stabilizing this token. In no time do we actually directly create a clone of MakerDAO on Elastos. So we'll just bridge over the DAI on our side and have a pool of ELA DAI, which is really just DAI. So at any time, you can just take your ELA DAI and redeem it for real DAI on Ethereum network 1-for-1. You'll never have an issue with that. If we separated that and decoupled them and actually created our own MakerDAO network, I mean, people aren't going to accept ELA DAI for DAI because they realize that ELA DAI is backed by a different collateral pool and they're not going to trust it really. So this way is much better. And this is actually through extensive conversation with MakerDAO that, they explained to us how difficult it was to manage it. So that's the first thing I want to explain is that we're just moving a DAI over here to use it on our side. And so we'll CR regions or, one of our financial teams will just, buy a bunch of DAI and just put it over here for usage. And maybe we'll create some sort of way that people just can buy it directly or something like that, right? Which is the money market. For the question about the liquidation. So even though the DAI on our side is brought over from Ethereum, we still need to collateralize ELA for DAI. We do that through the money market. So the money market is a super simplified MakerDAO. So MakerDAO actually does a lot more liquidation on stuff like that and different types of assets backing it. The money market's super simple. All it does is it continually checks the ELA to USD price, right? We need to maintain a 50% collateralization ratio between ELA and ELA DAI. So if you put in $150 of ELA at the current price, whatever it is today, you get $100 of ELA DAI out from the money market, just from our pool of money. We're not minting any new DAI. That's the big difference. We're just grabbing some from the pool and giving it to you and say, here, go ahead. But the reason you need to over collateralize is because ELA is a volatile asset, unlike ELA DAI. So we continually check the price from the chain link about the price of ELA versus USD. If at any time ELA drops below 1-to-1, which is par, right, then you have an issue because we can never let ELA drop below the same price of ELA DAI. What will happen is the contract where you put the money will turn into a liquidation contract, which will be bought by somebody else who wants to liquidate you. So we'll actually have people kind of hawking, circling like vultures, waiting for liquidation. Because when liquidation happens is they're literally going to be able to buy the DAI for 3% cheaper because you're hitting that ratio. So we give them a reward to liquidate your contract. So we're paying other people to basically liquidate your contract. People will obviously buy it. And that's actually how also MakerDAO works. In MakerDAO, when there's a liquidation event, there's actually these liquidation nodes that actually look around and they watch and they liquidate your money for you. So that's just unfortunate. You lose your ELA if it goes under $1.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. Strauss, do you have the next question for Clarence?
Yeah, sure. So we expect Ethereum 2.0 to be released one day. Are there any plans to rebuild the sidechain to the Ethereum 2.0 as well, or would that not be necessary?
That won't be necessary. I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding here. So Ethereum 2.0 is a new consensus protocol, but still Ethereum. So it's still compatible with Ethereum dApps. The whole idea of Ethereum 2.0, there shouldn't be any, it should not be jarring for any dApps to migrate over to Ethereum 2.0. They should just run as they expect to run on Ethereum 1.0. It's just a different consensus. The consensus protocol is being changed to where they use sharding and DPoS to run the sharding. It's very difficult, as you know. It's been taking them a while because sharding is a totally different ballgame, because if you could somehow control which shard you're in, or even have a bit of control over which nodes are in your shard, and if you were able to maliciously gain control of those the nodes in that shard, you'd be able to affect the state on your shard, which is a big deal. You could actually cause crazy forks like that, right? So it's extremely hard to manage that at the scale that Ethereum is trying to do. But we have a totally different model, right? Our consensus is sidechain and DPoS. So we're not really, I mean, you could maybe think of a sidechain as a shard as well, but for us, it'll be a bit different too. Ethereum is going to be dynamically balancing. It's just, they want the same level of security across the entire platform. And like I said earlier, we're more flexible. We're saying, hey, if you're running a gambling app, then yeah, you probably want a lot more nodes. If you want a simple game sidechain, then you could have less nodes. So you'd have to look at it. It's just the middle consensus layer is different, but at the top level, it should all be the same. So we're not going to copy them because we have our own design.
It's really fascinating. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add to any of these topics? Okay, brilliant. Chris, would you like to ask the next question?
Yeah, hi Clarence. Can you just tell us a little bit more about the need and the possibility of cross-chain functionalities with other public and private chains? I mean, is it realistic to expect that we will see true interoperability coming to Elastos?
It is. It's actually, if you look at the price of Ren the last week, it's becoming very obvious. Wrapped BTC, Curve Finance, all these guys are, I mean, Ren moved $25 million in BTC over to Ethereum in one day. That's just staggering. I think this is going to grow exponentially. This is really what blockchain was meant for. When you think about it, decentralized finance. If you just look at the root word, what we're talking about is it's your traditional banking system, but decentralized. And not just that, your traditional banking system, why can't I wire money at 2 a.m. at night? Why can't I get a small micro loan anytime I want? Why is the market even down on the weekends, right? People who trade in stock markets are used to trading 5 days a week, and on the weekend it's closed. But the decentralized market isn't like that. It's always on, right? If you needed a flash loan to pay for a hospital bill or something, you couldn't really do it on the weekend. It's just ridiculous, actually. So a lot of money is moving in here, and people are discovering that there are ways to create really good financial products in DeFi, right? So the better financial products are, that's what yield farming is all about, is people taking large chunks of money and moving it around to wherever they can find the most ROI. So we need the cross-chain because, unfortunately, the way it already is that all of the assets are sitting on Ethereum. You know, billions and billions of dollars worth of assets now on Ethereum. And then as in Liechtenstein, now you can tokenize anything with the new blockchain act. So you're basically going to get tokenized gold, tokenized oil, tokenized everything on the blockchain. So Ethereum is just going to have so much value sitting on the chain there that we have to figure out, okay, how do we connect to them? Because that value is fluid. So if there are better opportunities over on our side, then they'll move it here. I have a side project I can talk about where we want to take musicians' royalties. So you look at a musician, they have a set income because they have royalties. And so they can take a loan out backed against their royalties. So that's a really good thing because someone will lend to them because they'll see a good cash flow and they'll say, okay, well, I'll give you a loan for like 7%. 7% is pretty much quite a bit. So if we get a 7% interest rate, then people are going to move their money here, lend it to the artists on Elastos, for example. So that kind of stuff is definitely possible. We need that bridge though, because if they can't move their money here, then they can't take advantage of the products we build over here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, brilliant. So we're just going to crack on here. I'm going to open up the questions to Jingyu Niu. I believe it's very early in China for you, so thank you for taking this today. And Chris, I believe actually you're the first person to ask. So if you'd like to lead the questions.
Yeah, it's very good to speak with you. As the Elastos development lead, how have you found the last few years, and what is it that makes Elastos technology so special to you?
Okay, I'm very fortunate to able to join the Elastos team. In Elastos, I can get in touch with more excellent people, interesting projects, and great teams. This is very important experience to me. Chen, Rong, and Hanfeng's vision and the concept of Elastos very attractive to me. Now the internet become highly centralized. Most users' traffic and data controlled by the giant internet companies. Only several giant internet companies. So I know this is not the right direction. Elastos show me another possibility, possible future. I hope Elastos can succeed and create a new internet, can make internet more decentralized.
Yeah, thank you very much. Joachim, I believe you've got a question.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. But first of all, thank you so much for joining us here today in this early hour. We get a lot of questions from the community that are all pretty much about more practical updates, kind of like a status update of the core technology. So I'm thinking about the carrier, DID, the sidechains, the Elastos coming out, of course. So I would really like to know what kind of milestones we can expect in the next few months. And on top of that, then also, when do you believe that all those core components will be fully production and business ready? Could you shed light on that?
That's a good question. We will have an important upgrade for the Ethereum Sidechain at the end of September, which will provide Solidity 0.5 compatibility support. Also include the improvements for the Ethereum toolchain. I think this is very important to the Ethereum applications. For example, like Defi. I think this upgrade can support Ethereum applications more smoothly. Another one is the Elastos browser. We also call Trinity. We are preparing for Elastos Essentials, which will be the core applications on the iOS platform. Corresponding to this, Trinity is also improving the toolchain, and it will support packaging Trinity dApps into native mobile applications. For example, on Android, on iOS, you can have native Elastos dApps. This is a very interesting direction for Elastos. In additional, Trinity Desktop is also under development. KP also mentioned that before. I think we will see the community preview very soon. The third one is Hive. Hive is currently under the heavy development. The goal is to build a layer 2 storage service on top of personal cloud drive or IPFS or Filecoin. At the moment, decentralized storage solutions such as IPFS or Filecoin only very limited support for applications and also not very application friendly. Hive hope to provide an application-oriented storage service through the layer 2 solution. This is also the focus in the next half year. About the production ready, I think our core blocks can support application development very well. Currently, our blockchain DID carrier have been used by many real applications. It's difficult to see platform is 100% complete. So it's need continuous polishing and improvements. Elastos is the same. I believe our efforts will make Elastos much better and mature to the applications.
All right, thank you so much. Strauss, do you have any additional questions to this?
Yeah, it's fascinating. So after Hiveplus is released later this year, what else is there to build? What do you have planned for the Elastos Foundation core teams until August next year?
Yeah, when Hive is released at the end of this year, the code blocks for the Elastos infrastructure are almost complete. Based on the Ethereum Chain and the Sidechains, we build a decentralized identity system, carrier communication, Hive storage layer, also Elastos runtime, include the DApp development to Chen. So this is a code piece for Elastos infrastructure. The next focus is to improve the economic model of the code blocks. I think one of the key reasons for the blockchain becomes so successful is the economic model. So a good economic model can better promote the development of the platform infrastructure itself and the ecosystem. So we will improve the economic model in the code blocks, such as Hive as a layer 2 storage solution, how to build a suitable economic model for it. Another one, we also planning for DID2. We know we already published the DID1. Currently, DID also has been used in many Elastos applications. Also include a CR website and CR applications. And Tuum Tech also built and published a KYC service based on DID, named Watch. In DID2, we will introduce user customized short names. Also, as well, more interesting features in DID2. The other point is to help dApps adopt on Elastos easily and quickly, which means we need to continue to improve the code blocks according to the application requirements. Maybe also provide a more application-oriented service blocks. Who wins the dApps? We win the future. We should make Elastos more application-oriented and can support application very smoothly and easily.
Fascinating. And as like you say, Hiveplus is the last kind of core component. And is there anything anyone would like to add on this, on their thoughts with after Hiveplus completion has been made and what they believe kind of will be possible?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in here really quickly. So I've been speaking to Jingyu about the Ethereum Sidechain. Of course, that's one of my main focuses. So we've had some early discussion on improving the performance. We definitely can get block time speeds lower. We're at 15 seconds now, which is just our fallback default, which is what Ethereum is at. But there is obviously competition by other chains that are going below, 1 second. I think Solana now is at 400 milliseconds, but obviously they're DPoS. But we definitely do want to get it lower. That's something that we're working on. I'm pushing pretty hard for, so I'm hoping that that's possible. It should definitely be possible because we're on DPoS, not POW, right? So from a technical standpoint, lower block time is definitely possible, and that will improve the user experience for everybody. If we get sub 5-second transaction times, that makes UX much more smooth, right? No one wants to wait 45 seconds for 3 transactions, right? That just takes far too long. So that will hopefully come around. There's another big part of, just let me quickly digress, because there's DeFi and Ethereum sidechain go hand in hand, right? We need smart contracts to run DeFi. We also need security in the sense that the wider DeFi community needs to trust us. You and I know that Elastos has 50% blockchain Bitcoin's hash rate, so we trust it, but that's not known to anybody else. It's very hard to educate them, right? So I'm also pushing for security audits by prominent organizations like Trail of Bits. So if we get prominent Ethereum security teams like Trail of Bits to audit our Ethereum sidechain and say, wow, this is very secure and performant, that will go a very long way to gaining acceptance into the wider Ethereum community. So I think people can hopefully look forward to that. At least that's my role at Elastos is to think about what would really make a difference, and that's one of those things that hopefully people would get excited about.
Thank you, Clarence.
I wanted to touch briefly on the possibilities of Hiveplus. I know that Jingyu mentioned a lot of things with Hiveplus, but I think Hiveplus, when you think about it, it is the final missing piece that that brings Elastos together. Because if you think about it, currently you have a blockchain. You have your smart contracts there, getting executed by themselves, looking at the outside data through oracles now, through Chainlink. But at the end of the day, when you want to decentralize every part of your application, you can't really do that with just blockchain. So people have thought about a number of other solutions like IPFS, it works, and some other solutions like even Solid Pod from Tim Berners-Lee, I guess. But all of those are still not viable solutions because, for one thing, IPFS it is slow and it's not very efficient when it comes to, like, if you wanted to just store something today, but then you want to delete it tomorrow, well, we can't do that because it's out there. So what Hiveplus provides is that bridge between the centralized world and the decentralized world, where you're not really getting rid, you have control of your entire data. So any applications that you use with Elastos and application data, your user data, any of your private data, like feeds data, whatever data is out there, you can utilize Hiveplus to store that on your own personal vault, we like to call it. Or you can also use it to store publicly, something like IPFS. So in a way, Hiveplus acts as a bridge. So this brings up a lot of possibilities because now it can be very, very efficient, and the authentication mechanism and all of those are handled through the DID, which is already working on Elastos. So Hiveplus kind of brings everything full circle with the DID carrier, because that's how you'll be able to, carrier for communication, and maybe utilize IPFS or your own personal cloud drive for storing something. So, combining all of these, you can build pretty much any kind of application out there without sacrificing your privacy, because you're in control of your data. You can delete it at any time or do whatever you want with it. And businesses can start building their business models out of this new paradigm, because, when we talk about selling your data and so on and so forth, I personally believe that, you will finally be able to sell your data, and businesses can actually implement their own solution where they can purchase data, certain data, and Hiveplus, I think, will be a big part of it.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, KP. I think that's a really good point, and thank you very much for adding that in. I just wondered if I could ask a question back to Jingyu about crypto name and the way that the Elastos community has bought into it so well. Is it possible to incorporate crypto name to Elastos feeds?
Yeah, we are very happy to integrate crypto name into Feeds application. Crypto is a very interesting project, and also attractive so many community users to buy crypto name. Yeah, we will integrate crypto names into Feeds application, and also we will introduce more interesting features in the Feeds app, include maybe short video support, DID KYC support, maybe include the paid channels for better quality content. So we are looking forward to the next releases for Feeds.
Yeah, that's great news. Well, thank you very much for that. I'm sure many in the community will be delighted.
So final question, can privacy blockchains exist with their full benefits and drawbacks inside the Elastos ecosystem? In other words, is anonymous transfer of value system a possibility with the given tools? Are we trying to avoid such usage altogether?
My answer to this question may be quite subjective. Blockchain technology itself is better in privacy. For example, it still has not been proved who is Satoshi Nakamoto, right? This shows that the blockchain can be anonymous, but I think anonymous is not our main direction for Elastos. We don't want to create another darknet. So what we need is support real applications and the real scenarios. And if necessary, we could also comply with local laws and regulations. So whether anonymous or not should be determined by application, not by Elastos platform, right?
Brilliant. Yes, very interesting. Thank you, Jingyu, so much for your input today. I mean, I know the community are going to love having heard from you. Before we move on, is there anything anyone would like to add?
Well, I can add one more point here. Basically, in my opinion, blockchain is a like IPFS or BTC. They are like really first tier kind of infrastructure. But Elastos Smart Web actually is the second tier solution. And what I'm saying is because if you send one Satoshi across a BTC network or send one seller through ELA main chain, right? It doesn't really necessarily mean you are exposing much information, because I can routinely send one seller peer-to-peer randomly through nodes because it's so cheap. But on the other hand, from the smart web layer, you can have deposit nodes, let's say owned by banks, literally owned by banks. Then daily they can do clearance, right? Like today, if you wire money from US to Europe or Europe vice versa, actually the banks doesn't really do the transactions for every submission. Basically they clear every day, right? And as long as you send a encrypted message from a Euro bank to the US bank saying, okay, so-and-so is sending this much money, I signed with digital signatures. And the other side with the public, notary public, observed the message, right? Recorded the message and then saying, okay, we got the message and we agree. So with both round trip messages, then literally the money transaction in Europe is from a pool, right? It's not necessarily from John Doe to Jane Doe, because of then essentially that'll hide all the explicit transactions, right, with the accounting books of the banks. So then whether the banks comply to the local regulations, that's another tier of questions. It's not the performance, it's not really blockchain. So in my opinion, a lot of those security issues or transactions, money laundering, all those issues are really not issues in the future. It's just issues right now.
Thank you, Rong. Is there anything anyone else would like to add?
Yeah, just quickly a technical answer too for us of privacy. But I think something that wasn't touched on is the technical possibility of privacy blockchains, as in anonymous transactions and total darknets. Definitely is possible through. We do have Nightfall. If you heard of that, it's a Ethereum-based zero knowledge library. It does work on Elastos, so someone could technically use Nightfall plus in the future Rong's vision of carrier-based computation. One of the biggest drawbacks of using Nightfall is zero knowledge proofs. And usage on the Ethereum blockchain in Solidity is extremely expensive, gas-wise, computationally wise. So if we were able to reliably build an off-chain way to process zero knowledge compute, that will allow us to open up privacy applications. But once again, I will put the disclaimer that's up for DApp developers to build that themselves. It's definitely possible. It's not our place to say whether or not we should get involved in the discussion of whether or not transactions should be private or not, right?
Thank you, Clarence. Okay, brilliant. Well, I think we're going to move across the questions to Peter. Thank you so much, Jingyu. Jochen, would you like to start these questions up?
Well, absolutely. So we already talked about a whole bunch of areas where Elastos is potentially super solid, right? So we talked about DeFi, we talked about DID applications. Clarence just casually dropped that from an enterprise public blockchain perspective, we are very solid. Another area that I find super interesting has to do with IoT. And actually the first solution that Peter and his team built is an IoT solution called Hyperconnect. And this whole theory of securing your IoT devices with Elastos technology is great, right? It makes total sense to me. But my question to you, Peter, is how long will it take before our smart fridges, our doorbells, our baby monitors will actually be using Hyperconnect on production level? And what needs to be done still to make that happen?
Yes, thank you, Jan, for the question. So to introduce, the Hyperconnect project is actually a fully open source peer-to-peer Internet of Things framework, which provides a graphical user interface and is designed for easy deployment and simple use by any user. And this framework also relies on the Elastos carrier for the peer-to-peer communication between devices, IoT devices through the internet. So with an optimal smart home setup, you may actually not need more than one device that can be considered the gateway that actually runs the carrier in each household. So for example, the Elastos carrier, which is already embedded in the Hyperconnect application, may be run on a single Raspberry Pi, and the Raspberry Pi will then communicate with the household items locally, in a sense, offline. And these household items, such as a smart fridge, can communicate with the Raspberry Pi through low-range communication protocols such as Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, Z-Wave, or Zigbee, without having to connect to the internet directly. And this setup is also more secure because none of the devices are exposed to an outside network. The Hyperconnect application also allows the collection of data from all these local sources and enables the user to set up flexible event logic, and the solution only routes the processed and necessary data through the peer-to-peer network to a remote application, such as a mobile application used for remote monitoring. The Hyperconnect project also provides this mobile application, and it also runs the Elastos carrier. So the communication between the gateway, the Raspberry Pi, and the mobile phone used for remote monitoring only uses the Elastos carrier, and therefore peer-to-peer communication. So to answer your original question, the Hyperconnect project can already be used for such purpose. Of course, it also depends on the setup of this IoT network. And of course, it is also important to note that not all household items allow such a custom deployment because, of course, the software is set up by the manufacturer and may be limited to communicate only with whitelisted applications of the manufacturer.
Awesome, thanks. Thank you so much. Maybe Sash, you can move to the next question.
Yes, thank you, Peter. So you've been involved with the Elastos desktop and the Elastos Inside developments. Can you tell us more on that? How long will it take before developers can build for Elastos and then port to native dApps? What will be the first native Elastos Inside dApps? And will the Apple Store again try to block things as they did with Elastos?
Yeah, so this is correct. So we have started working with Tuum in March this year to further build out the Hyper Messenger, and eventually also started working in parallel on the Elastos desktop version in June. And we are coming close to a proof of concept, which handles the Elastos environment on desktop and also some carrier functionalities. And of course, when the full carrier integration is done, then we will move on with the ID integration and eventually the wallet. So when the DID and carrier integration is ready, all the decentralized DApps that are already available on mobile Elastos version can be relatively easily ported without having to change the entire code base. The public release of the Elastos desktop is expected to be in early November, and anyone can start building the apps which are already, which can then run on the desktop environment. However, until the desktop version is ready, developers may already start building the apps for the mobile Elastos version, since those can then easily be ported to the desktop version with minimal code changes. With this Ionic and Cordova frameworks for cross-platform development using JavaScript, when developing the app, it can run on mobile platforms such as Android and iOS, and also on desktop environments such as Windows, macOS, or Linux, and all from a single code base. As for the Apple App Store question, the desktop environments are actually far more flexible, and App Store approval does not really affect the distribution of the Elastos desktop version other than the official Mac App Store. The Elastos and also its the apps can later be downloaded from theoretically any website, such as the elastos.org website or developer websites, similarly to general desktop applications, and can be installed on any MacBook. And the same goes for all operating systems. In contrast to the App Store for mobile applications, it is only possible to distribute apps onto iPhones from the official App Store, but not from third-party websites. For desktop, this is not the case.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Peter. Is there anything anyone else would like to add? Okay, so it looks to me like Chris has dropped off. I think he was having some internet issues. Jochen, would you like to lead the next question?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah, let's dive deeper into the native Elastos inside apps. Because I understand that you would still need Elastos for DID integration, etc., right? So yeah, that kind of worries me a little bit because you cannot force everyone to download a fairly heavy Elastos, I think. So do you expect an Elastos Lite kind of app, or perhaps an Elastos Authenticator app that could be developed to overcome the challenge?
Yeah, so this is an excellent question, and I'm glad that you brought it up. So we are planning to allow developers to use the full Elastos functionality within their standalone apps as well. And this by making the Elastos framework itself more modular. So when a developer creates a decentralized application by using the Elastos build tool, it can generate both the app that runs within the Elastos environment and as well as the second version, which is a standalone app that can be directly started without having to navigate within the Elastos environment, but still allows the developer and its users to use all the Elastos functionalities, such as the DID or carrier. And this build process simplifies the development for different purposes without requiring the developer to choose one approach or the other and having to rebuild the app from scratch for the other. And yes, this approach can be seen as an ElastOS Lite DApp, as you mentioned.
I want to expand on whatever Peter said a little bit here regarding the native version. So looking at it from an overall like wider angle, what this means is that previously, if you wanted to develop your application, you would have to build for ElastOS and you would have to deploy it, and and then I would have to, if I wanted my family members to use the application that I developed, I would have to ask them to download the ElastOS application first, and then go ahead and download the application inside ElastOS and then be able to run that, right? What this allows us to do with this new functionality in the future is whenever the developer is developing the application for ElastOS, it's a matter of changing a flag while developing. So I can choose, okay, I want to target ElastOS. So then when I do that, I can easily run it inside ElastOS and I can deploy it for ElastOS. And then with another flag, I can choose, okay, now I want to run it as a standalone application for Android or for iOS. And so that will let me run the exact same code, but as a standalone application. So that standalone application has a couple of benefits where it allows anyone to deploy their application to Apple Store or Google Play Store directly, instead of asking someone to download ElastOS and then going that route. And then maybe and then let's say I want to switch another flag, right? Maybe I want to run that code, but now I want to target my desktop. Now I want to be able to do that too. So, this introduces that kind of versatility when it comes to the development for developers. So they don't really need to care about all the bridges and all the plugins and how that works underneath. They just write the code in Ionic, using Angular framework, React framework, and then they can choose the platform they want to deploy on. And then they can, with the push of a button, hopefully, eventually, you'll be able to deploy this one piece of code to 5 or even 10 different platforms with the push of a button. And if you can do that, then you'll have a very far reach when it comes to marketing the application or providing the same feature for in multiple platforms. Obviously, each platform has its own advantages and its own disadvantages, but the idea is we want to be versatile, right? We want to make it very, very easy. So write code once, run everywhere. That's the eventual goal with this native Trinity native project.
Yeah, I find it so fascinating because this again shows that Elastos is not just a blockchain project, and this is the perfect example of that. Because can you then also say that pretty much every DApp that uses this kind of servers that I think that anyone should use eventually, could you then say that these DApps would be automatically like smart web DApps? Could you make a statement kind of?
Yeah, I mean, they are all smart web DApps because they are utilizing. We're not really, I want to put an emphasis on write code once, deployed everywhere. That's because we're actually utilizing this exact same technology. Obviously, like if you were to have a standalone application deployed to Google Play or Apple Store, you have to play by their rules. So even if you are able to build it, deploy it, maybe you won't get accepted, right? In that case, ElastOS browser itself is a great option because applications, you can run any kind of applications without being restricted by any central entity, right? So in a way, I would say the applications running inside ElastOS are the true decentralized applications because they cannot be censored, or Apple can't decide to just remove it from their app store because it's not on Apple Store. It lives on the decentralized storage. protected by your DID, your developer's DID, so on and so forth. But that's the idea with that. So desktop, I would even go as far as to say that the desktop will be the true platform where I think users will want to watch out for, and we will be using quite often, because when we talked about Elastos, we've been talking about being able to easily sell movies and so on and so forth, right? So of course you can watch movies and stuff on your mobile phone, but usually when I'm watching a movie, I want to watch it on my desktop. So this just brings that whole new domain where developers can build any kind of applications, like YouTube-like applications, or any kind of applications utilizing smart contracts, utilizing blockchain, Hiveplus, everything DID, and then you can play that on your desktop. And then maybe you want to switch to your mobile platform, right? Then you should be able to do that too, and it will run on mobile too. So that's the goal when it comes to making everything just one cohesive platform where you deploy it once and then the users can run it from anywhere. You are using your Hiveplus or your Vault to back up your entire data. So like, even your chat history on Hyper Messenger, or your application data that you have on your mobile phone, using Hiveplus, you'll be able to back it up so that you can just quickly hop onto your desktop and all of your data is right there. And it's not really on any company's central servers. It's on your own server, right? On your own node. So it just comes full circle.
I can't tell you how exciting it is to hear everyone's answers. It really is incredible. Yeah, I'm getting the same from the sentiment on the comments as well. I think the community are loving this. So thank you so much, Peter, for those answers. And is there anything else anyone else would like to add on these? Okay, brilliant. Well, thanks, Clarence and KP too. So we're going to move over to Rong now. How are we doing, Rong?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. It's a pleasure to have you here today. So we're going to jump straight in. So as we celebrate the 3rd anniversary today, we must recognize that your journey towards a smart web started over 20 years ago. Now, this epic story was recently republished under the name The Odyssey of Rong Chen. And so when you look back on your journey and see where we're at today, how do you feel about our smart web's progress? And what are the key challenges that still need to be tackled looking forward?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I saw this article resurfaced. To tell you the truth, actually, I'm deeply humbled or kind of embarrassed in a way to read the article. Actually, the real life story is much simpler, right? 20 years ago, when I set up on this journey, basically, what I had in mind was 2 things. One is components, technology. Later on was defined as SaaS, software as a service, which is the component technology. The second one, I knew, I believed, right, 20 years ago was separation of application from communication. Those are like guiding principles. Those 2 are guiding principles for new software design, whether it's an operating system or the internet. They're in general. But on the other hand, what I didn't know was that there are only 3 places for operating systems. It's not like phones, you can have hundreds of them. But then if you're not top 3, basically you're just a research project, put it this way. And so what happened was really, I wrote it in my Twitter. It's just damn luck that I didn't die in 20 years, right? The venture didn't die, survived. The second, very simple was just dumb ass, right? You don't try to be smart. What I mean is that when I realized for the past 20 years, no one really have done a componentized OS or software architecture. I mean, there are some, but not still not popular. The other one, separation of application from the communication, right? This principle we knew 20 years ago, not just me, a lot of folks at Microsoft knew about this. But then on the other hand, look at the real world. How many people are applying those two principles? Almost none. Because of it, nobody's doing it. We just like, okay, trying to be stupid and stubborn and keep on doing it. That was the simple facts. And the other one I want to remind our community is that the reason why, because people claiming, you know, if you didn't succeed 20 years ago, how come you have a chance today? Which is a valid question. The thing is, for the past 20 years, no one wants to pay for security. No one wants to pay for privacy, right? No one wants to pay for the virus attacks. That's why Microsoft didn't put in even more resources to further the two guiding principles, because no money is made. But currently, when you look at the blockchain, which is more the problems, privacy, the owning data ownership, right? Without guarding, I was saying that's a personal cloud compute, without a visible or invisible boundary to guard your data. Actually recording who owns the data means not much. It's like a Microsoft Windows, right? They have all the serial numbers for all the Windows DVDs. But yet there are so many piracy copies on the street without, just saying, okay, who owns the copyright, the IP of the DVD? Of course, it's obvious. But then if piracy copies all over the world, then it doesn't make much difference, right? Microsoft couldn't make money out of it. So, but then with the blockchain and the maturity of the personal cloud compute, then finally we can put the two together and make some money for our partners and us. So that's basically the overarching statement I want to make. And to say what we have for the progress of the smart web. So I also put a Twitter, very simple one. Blockchain, check. Cyber Republic, check, right? Smart web, check. I'm not saying we're done, but then comparing to 3 years ago, definitely it's much more obvious what we're talking about. The hash rate, the side chains, right? The token, the DID side chains, and so on. And then the other one, actually, that was the biggest risk or gamble for this whole journey, the new journey of the Elastos Smart Web. Looking back on a hindsight, from the August 2018 to February 1st of August 2017 to February 1st of 2018, that was the biggest risk we took. And we actually changed 3 tech leads for the blockchain. And we also fortunately got some outside help, like from on-chain, right? Carried us to launch the main chain. At that point and also in the middle, there was a Chinese government crackdown on September 4th. So all the things add together, because I didn't know blockchain that well. Everything was based on a hunch. If Satoshi just wrote 50,000 of lines, we can do it in 4 months. That was the hunch. But then in reality, that was a gamble, okay? We kind of win that bet. That was the biggest risk. The second biggest risk is from the February 1st to August, February 1st of 2018 to August of 2020, what we are at today. Fortunately, we had Yipeng and Jingyu came back to this project, right? They were both my CTOs chief architect once upon a time. And Yipeng led the blockchain team. And also he was the mastermind behind the CRC white paper and behind implementation of the Elastos main chain. So without him, right, we wouldn't have the CRC as we see today. The other one, of course, is Jingyu as a smart web check, right? The smart web consists not just the blockchains. It has like a Hive. Hive is the overarching IPFS, and also has something to do with Google Drive, OneDrive, all those personal cloud drives, and the home NAS. Then there's a peer-to-peer carrier I'll mention later on. And of course, on top of it, we're going to deploy dApps. And Jingyu also mentioned we're going to have the next phase, phase 3 of this journey, right? For this 4 years, or maybe a little bit beyond 4 years, would be dApps and business models, which in my Twitter, I was just saying it's ongoing for the next year. Yeah, that.
Awesome. Well, that's a lot of information. But thank you so much for that. You already mentioned that you've been tweeting quite a lot recently, and that has not gone unnoticed. Actually, the community really appreciates that a lot. So thank you for that. And one of the things, and I'm aware that during this talk, the answer has been more or less already given partly, but one of the things that you've been talking about is like the smart web being an internet computer and a PC2 being a decentralized clouds. Can you explain in simple terms what that means exactly?
Yeah, I keep repeating myself on those basic concepts because for our community members or for our teams, they're easily buried into daily chores like, okay, we need to get this Hiveplus, we need to get the video, we need to get carrier going, DID going, right? Those are all components. But why do we have so many components? Because our community was complaining, this project is way overwhelming, too complicated. So that's why I was trying to really put it simple, comparing to a computer. When you look at a computer, everyone, I hope, have ever had the experience open up a PC. When you open up a PC, really, there are only 3 things in it. The 3 things are, of course, you will have hard drive for storage. And then you have a motherboard, which is so-called a second tier, right? And in-memory database, in-memory file system, in-memory data cache runs programs. But actually, memory is a way of optimization. It's not really necessary in theory. A third piece, of course, is the CPU. It's the motherboard. No, it's the CPU execution unit, right? With that 3 things, that'll give us a computer. And also, I want to compare a internet computer. If you look at the reason why we say smart web is a computer, smart web has a huge, almost infinite amount of storage. There are 2 kinds of storages. One is the personal cloud, like Hive, OneDrive, Google Drive, home NAS. Those are personal storage. And then there's a public storage, and for binaries, for public files that people want to share, right? Comparing to a PC, you have a home directory, you have public directories. And when people see IPFS, they say, wow, that's the future. That's not, I mean, it is in a way, but that's just a component of a web computer. It's not the whole web computer. And also it's only part of the storage, because if where do you put your personal data? Where do you, when you, before you publish a video, where do you do the video editing? You don't do video editing on IPFS. You do all your write-ups, right, on your personal storage. So what I'm trying to compare is that IPFS alone is not an ecosystem. Similarly, if you see Ethereum, so-called world computer, which is very, very misleading because of its, in a way, it's true. In engineer's mind, it is a computer. According to Alan Turing, with a CPU and a hard drive, you have a computer. So every smart device we're talking about today is a computer. Mouse is a computer. Keyboard is a computer. Video webcam is a computer, right? Because it has a CPU built in because it's a smart device. It has some little bit of storage built in. So literally that's a Alan Turing computer over there, okay? But that's not the computer in consumer's mind. The computer, the term that computer, the consumer understands, it's the PC we can run words, Office. We can do Grand Theft Auto. We can do video multicasting, right? Those are the computers in consumer's mind. If you're saying world computer and has like, okay, 1,500 transactions per day, per second, right? And in theory, it will never be as fast as a PC, single PC. There's no way. I mean, an Ethereum world computer will never compete with a single computer, speed-wise. And if you talk about Web3, that's another misleading word. Because Web3 is definitely, it's a cross-chain, parachain, sharding. Well, it depends on what you put it. And then different parachains talking to another. And then with a latency of at least 5 seconds per message. Okay, so that kind of web is not the WW web we're talking about. Every message takes about 5 to 15 seconds. Is that the web we are talking about? It's not the web of consumer talk about, okay? So there's a huge, huge gap between the blockchain community and the reality. The reality is the web. It's not the Web3. It's not the world computer. That's where the smart web comes in. I hope our community at least learn this far, okay? And also, as I mentioned, when we start the journey, we want to do SaaS, we want to do component, we want to separate applications from communications, make the applications agnostic to the infrastructures. So then you can see the effect after 3 years. We can have actually Neo Sidechain or EOS Sidechain. Actually, we tried a little bit, but then those 3 chains, right? Of course, Ethereum Sidechain is much more mature because there's more demand for it. If there's a demand for Neo, we'll put more priority, higher priority on Neo. So if EOS is popular, then we just switch to EOS Sidechain. That's not an issue. And if cross chains, I also wrote a Twitter. If there's a cross chain needs, euro swap to US dollar, then definitely we could either port Web3, Polkadot, or we do our own. That's a decision we're going to make down the road. However, the apps, the consumer apps will not be affected when we're rotating or replacing components. So that we're agnostic to those projects. It's similar to Boeing, right? Boeing is the assembly for airplane. But Boeing doesn't really make Rolls-Royce engines or GE engines. They pick an engine, right? So then a lot of community members trying to compare. Is that Elastos? How do you compare Elastos with the Polkadot Web3? How do you compare Elastos web computer with the Ethereum world computer? I just mentioned, by definition, we're completely different beasts. We don't compare. We consider them being the Rolls-Royce engines or replaceable components. And another thing I want to emphasize, in the long run, we're not doing the, I wouldn't say speculations. I understand speculations, okay? I did some stock tradings in my past life. So I understand the pain of losing money. Believe me, right? I won't tell you how much I lost, but at least I lost 6 figures, put it this way. Okay, and so I understand the pain, okay? But on the other hand, if you do investing in stocks, where's the money, you ask? Okay, the money doesn't generate from exchanges. The money is generated from business. And then you ask, where's the economy? Without economy, why do you need a token? Why do you want to swap token? You need to have businesses. And the businesses, when you see Bitcoin, the Bitcoin, right? It has an economy, whether it's a dark web or it's money laundering. That's a business. That's an economy, whether you like it or not. That's real money change hands. It's not on exchanges. And then the other ones, for us, we're not doing the offline ones. How do we trade ebooks? How do we trade videos? How do we protect personal data and having people to trade personal data? And those are the business I'm talking about. Can you sell a video with a scarcity? Can you, somehow evaluate your personal data like a Green Pass? How much your health data is worth? And can you, contribute or sell it to health organizations or drug manufacturers? Those are the ones, the business we're actually thinking about in the near future. So that's why when I wrote the Twitter message, I wanted people to read for a record the reasons behind the whole thing. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's very inspiring and also very clear. So it's a very good answer. Thank you so much. Chris is back actually. So Chris, would you like to ask the next question?
Yeah, hello, Rong. It's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much. So this is a question that I know that you'll be passionate about, and it's to do with marketing. And we know that the Elastos Foundation's approach has been to build first. So build the technology first and not worry about the marketing. But as you said, we're going to enter phase 3 now, where we want distributed applications and businesses to build, because you need economies to make this work. And so we're all looking to see more investors and traders and businesses and users on Elastos. So a couple of questions here that I would like you to help explain to the community, which is, what is the role of the Elastos Foundation in terms of marketing? As the first question. And secondly, what do you think the community can do to coordinate and onboard users and investors and accelerate the adoption of Elastos?
Yeah, well, I mean, this question come up over and over so many times, whether we did our marketing poorly, Well, first, I accept we do, especially me, have a lot of limitations. I just said, made 2 comments, damn luck, dumb ass. If you just say, I was just a dumb ass, that's fine, okay? The other one was, we're trying to Elastos, whether it's an operating system or a smart web, we are building an ecosystem. We're trying to facilitate an economy. And what's an economy versus a product? Operating system versus a product, right? So I was trained by discipline. And when you have an economy, how do you market an economy? And for like an operating system, right? Linux, Windows, how do you market Windows or Linux when it's under development? So actually operating system shines because of they have killer apps on top, right? With the, it's not, for example, take a smartphone. It's not that Microsoft couldn't make a smartphone. Microsoft indeed had a Windows phone. But without the apps, without the economy, without the ecosystem, Android or iOS ecosystem, even if Microsoft could build a Windows phone, it's going nowhere, right? People should see that. And a economy shines because of, you have some Fortune 500 corporations in your economy. So then when we say, and another reason is that when we say, okay, we are building, I was just clarify the smart web computer versus the world computer, right? The smart web versus Web3. I just did the comparisons. But then when I go on the stage, I'm saying, okay, we are better than Web3. We are better than world computer. What do you think the audience will say? You're bragging about new internet, right? And no one believes you can do a new internet. How many people believe, you say you do an internet and then they believe you? And did we say that? We do have videos saying we are building a new internet. How many people believe in us, including our community? Do you believe? Given some investors being with us for 3 years, I don't think they believe in us. I do see the token price have been deeply oppressed. I see that. I'm sorry for that. Feel sorry for that. But on the other hand, we stick to our white paper. We achieved what we promised. And that's what all I have to say about marketing. Maybe, Clarence could do a better marketing on DeFi, or Tuum team can do a better marketing on feeds. Well, I mean, it's that's exactly what I hope to happen, okay? But if people counting on me, I think I'm passionate enough, if you see what I'm saying right now. How much I can say marketing? How much more I can say? And I hope people give up on me, okay? And for the, what's the other question? Chris, the second half.
Well, and I hope you're hearing me now. I think your passion is obvious, and I think the second part of it was what you think the community can do to help accelerate the growth of Elastos and onboard.
Yeah, I hope
because you've very clearly said.
That's actually when you see the example of Hyper Feeds, Green Pass, or what TuneTech have done, those vouch assist, those are the apps, right? Because I personally, in my past life, I also had some encounters with the www web. I was also very early number 10 employee of Microsoft browser. So I went through the whole process, how the www web jump started. So over there, really, I hope the community have patience there. And so far, when people talk about ecosystem, talk about dApps, I was also in my Twitter mentioned that the definition of dApps running on blockchain, they are dApps. If they say they are dApps, actually, I think they're decentralized services instead of decentralized apps. I would say that. But then if you say, okay, that's a dApps, that's fine too. But then that's only a very, very small subset of the dApps. The dApps actually are, you can think of all the mobile apps could have a decentralized counterpart. The mobile apps without servers meddling, right? Those are the dApps. Say if we have Hyper or Feeds, and I of course I wish there's a COVID thing, and also the I wish the Hyper and Feeds could be available today, right? So then we can have 20,000 users. But yeah, unfortunately, we are a little bit about a month, 2 months to go here. And then if you see, we could literally demonstrate a mainstream app, like a social network, like a social blogging, and later on short videos, right? And also we can promise our performance will not be much worse than what the web today. In theory, we're going to be on parallel with the performance of the web today. We're not going to be 5 seconds per message. We're not going to be 1,500 transactions per second. Okay, we're talking about transaction speed on par. I mean, of course, when we barely started, we could be a little slow, right? To the www web. What I'm saying is, who right now in the world claiming, which project claiming this far? And I hope, I'm trying to encourage our partners like a GreenPass, like Hyper, like Feeds, right? To be brave enough, like Forrest Gump, stupid enough to try it, okay?
Thank you very much. I think that's I mean, it's a very passionate message you've given there, and I think we do understand that. I think there are some, there's an awful lot of work that we can do in the community to leverage the passion and the talent of the whole community to try and explain what you have said there, the principles that you've said, what we stand for as a community, and what you stand for in your beliefs, and what we described in that article about your own journey. But I think also, coming from a non-technical background, it's important to help people understand what a computer is. You know, you think that it's relatively simple, and you keep telling us. I think it's our job now to go and help as a community in all of the different languages of the world to go and help explain that to other people, so that we can increase the level of knowledge and understanding about what computers are, what the Turing mechanism is, what the smart web is, and Web3, and how that differentiates, and therefore bring people to Elastos so that those businesses can be brave and can build on Elastos, and therefore demonstrate what it is. Well, thank you very much. Ash, have you got anything to wrap up? Do you want to ask some questions around the houses?
So yeah, we've got one more question here. Just before I ask, has anyone got anything they'd like to add themselves? I think you've left everyone speechless, Rong. Okay, brilliant. Let's move on. So the last question I've got here is, when the Elastos Foundation dissolves in a year, how do you imagine the Elastos ecosystem to sustain or enhance itself?
Yeah, that's also a good question, because we owe our community at least the answer, because for that. And when we say early on, Elastos Foundation raised tokens to build a smart web, I was just emphasized, this is a project to build an economy, right? Or project to build an ecosystem. So this is not a product company per se, even though we build a smart web to start with, like, okay, 3 years now, and we're going on the 4th. So I hope our community is confident enough in 4 years, we should have a much more stable or easy to use new smart web, okay? I hope the community take it that far. So that means we can indeed, given the tokens we raised, and build a smart web. But on the other hand, community keep comparing us with some projects, right? Like a company has a CEO, a project has a leader. An economy doesn't necessarily have a leader. Or they may have like a CRC make some decisions to prevent forking, and to try to, like United Nations, to try to stop countries from going to war. And then people have already seen what we built for CRC. As for Elastos Foundation, at the August of next year, what's going to happen is very likely is that the Elastos Foundation will turn into Elastos Consortium. So more like we mentioned, W3C, WWW Consortium, which is a standard organization, right? And we want to make Elastos Consortium being the regulated nonprofit, not a crypto organization. But then, of course, the consortium will depends on some donations, whether it's a fiat or crypto. But on the other hand, it should be registered according regulated, right, nonprofit. And also, it's an open membership like W3C. Any organization, any core team member, core teams, they could apply and joining the consortium. It's open. Instead of Elastos Foundation is a closed and has a mission, right, responsibility to our community. So definitely we're going to change the role. The consortium may still use the elastosfoundation.org, but then we're going to remove those like wallet.elastos.org and put it somewhere else, say wallet.elastos.io. Basically just moving those products into different websites. And then you can see the, even though the Elastos Foundation currently has about less than 10 people, right? We since last October, we have already started this process. So given the leftover tokens we have in our wallet, we sponsor like a Tuum team, Elephant team, Carrier team, Galaxy team, Trinity team. People see those weekly reports, and we do half-year auditing, right? Because we're responsible for those tokens. And when we say 4 years, with my management style, right? Given the experiences managing companies, and also because of Fenghan and me, the age-wise, we're not really the risk takers financially. So we are kind of very conservative. Then people can count on us. Definitely will not run out in 4 years. And optimistically, we may run a little bit longer. Okay? And so what I'm saying is that by the 4th year, we change the name. But on the other hand, the token-wise, we're still responsible. And then the Elastos Foundation that registered in Singapore will still going until we literally run out. So the dissolving is not necessarily the same time as, you know, we have this elastos.org changing contents, right, to a standard organization, open membership. Then we still have the Singapore Elastos Foundation, put it this way, for a little bit longer. And then in the third thing I want to emphasize is that, as you can see, also Jingyu talked about, this year, we are going to put more emphasis on the dApps, incubating dApps, and also trying to come up or helping facilitate to our core teams or member teams to have the business models, which is the tokenomics. When I mean tokenomics, I hear people talking about DeFi, you know, why don't you marketing DeFi? First of all, it's not that I don't marketing, because we're not really building our own DeFi. We encourage our partners to port their DeFi to our Ethereum sidechains. Or maybe we may build more sidechains to incubate more crypto projects. But that's not the real focus. The real focus for us, right, for the core team, is real economy. like can we help the underprivileged? They don't have a credit card. Can they borrow money, right? In the real world, borrow fiat. How do we use blockchain technology and with our security guarantees and DID vouch, right, to help the authorities and to help the underprivileged? And is that in my opinion, that's I would call DeFi. Real world decentralized financing instead of crypto DeFi. It's like a dApps, right? There's a crypto dApp, but then we put more emphasis on the real web dApp. We need both, but we are strong on the real world side, and we leverage the crypto side. The other one is that you see, I was with Foxconn. If you see Foxconn, if you see Amazon, Alibaba, when they do business, let's say if I buy something through Alibaba or Amazon, I pay $100. Who get the money? Amazon get the money or Alibaba get the money, right? And then when are they going to pay the shops? For the supply chain, for the shops, there's a delay. And for supply chain in Asia, that's a 6 months in average. In Europe, that's a 3 weeks delay paying. Okay? And for a half year delay, can you borrow money with the credentials from the bank, right? To put the money back into production. And also when I'm buying something on e-business, and right now I pay Amazon. Amazon pay the shops. But let's say if I pay $100 with the smart contracts, I should pay the commission to Amazon, then pay the e-shops directly. So $100 will divide it into several segments. Some of them paying the gas fees of the smart web, the miners. Some of them paying the e-business. Some of them paying the channel, right? The Amazon. And if that's the case, and people think, oh, isn't that obvious? I don't know if people count on that. In China, at least, when I say, there's a delay, then there's a middleman cut, which is very substantial. And then like supply chain, they have if I supply a battery to Foxconn, if I supply a screen to Foxconn, right, to make an iPhone, before the phone is sold, there's a 17% value-added tax every step of the way. The product haven't been sold on the market yet. Every vendor, not only they have a 6-month delay for the payment, they also incur 17% tax right away. That's a lot of money. If we can, after all, when the Android phone is sold on the market, as soon as the consumer purchase the phone, all the proceeds will automatically go into the correct parties. That's a huge amount of money to be saved. A completely new way of doing the real world business, given this decentralized technology. That's what I see. That's what I'm excited about. That's where I see the core teams could help those partners to set up eBiz, decentralize the eBiz, decentralize the YouTube, decentralize the Twitter, right? If they could make money, then our core teams can make money. If we can build a new internet, real new internet, instead of a blockchain new internet, I'm very confident that we can get traditional VCs to line up, because there's so much money to be made.
Thank you, Rong. I think on that note, there's probably not much more to be said. That's such a positive way to end this. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. I know for the community, this will be extremely insightful. And a last comment I'd add is, 3 years ago, we didn't really know each other. And here we are today. And actually the relationships and what we're building has brought us all together through a common vision. So, 3 years at the end of the day isn't actually a very long time, but what we've achieved is so great already. And I just don't, I think we don't fully understand the impact it will have on people's lives in the future in the way that the early web, we didn't really understand Uber, which came 10 years later, as trivial as it may be. I think today it's hard for us to imagine what impact we will have in the future, but together we're building this and it's extremely optimistic. So thank you everyone for all your work and thank you for doing this. Before we leave, is there any last thoughts from anyone?
Exciting times ahead.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much, guys. Onwards, upwards, Elastos.
Okay.
See you later.
All right.